Hi everybody, this is Warren Herman, and today I want to speak to you about the subject of discerning our vocation in life and how our minds play a role in this. Sometimes I think there are ways in which we seek to find our vocation in a passive way. We either hope to examine ourselves and find this kind of call from God to do something, whether it's be married, whether it's be a priest, whether it's be a religious. We're trying to find it in ourselves or in our proper motives, or we're hoping that God is going to just give us a complete download and a vision, and then we will know exactly what to do. And I think it's very interesting to make a contrast between this kind of passive vocation, this kind of thing where something outside of our control or found in our unconscious mind, where they're coming from, we could call the superconscious mind, meaning our inspirations, or our unconscious mind, our motivations and feelings. We look to those places for our guidance in our discernment, rather than looking in our conscious mind, our actual decisions, intentions, and goals, and seeing how to best meet them. So this is an interesting way of looking at vocation, and I think it's helpful and can give some clarity that you usually don't find if you think about vocation without trying to think about these different states. The interesting thing is that this type of understanding of vocation, I believe, is reflected in something that is described in the book, Religious Vocation, An Unnecessary Mystery, where it seems that there is a debate between the theory that we are supposed to be attracted to the religious life, or the theory that that we just kind of, there's certain characteristics. So for example, somebody called to be a priest needs to be male, needs to have the right intention, needs to have the call of the bishop, and these type of things are necessary for the vocation. So there were a few different factors that the church said, yes, these are necessary, but they didn't say that one needs to have this special kind of attraction for the vocation. So I think what's interesting is that what I'm speaking about here is kind of a psychological understanding that kind of can underpin and help us to understand ourselves as we do vocational discernment. And the thing is that I think this also reflects what Father Narciso Irala spoke about in his book, Achieving Peace of Heart. And he talks about how a lot of our problems are caused by being in what he called the passive state, where our minds are kind of left to be on autopilot. And rather than that our conscious faculties are kind of guiding us forward. And I believe that sometimes we can, in a way, go about vocation in this kind of passive state, whether we're looking for some type of inspiration of God to drag us along, or some kind of discovery inside of our own feelings, as if we could dig among our feelings and find the right intention, find the vocation there, find that attraction, testing ourselves. Oh, do I feel drawn to the priesthood today? Do I feel drawn to marriage today? This, I think, is a recipe for confusion. And I think that what happens ultimately is that we lose the ability to love, which is essential to the vocation, and because we lose the ability to choose, because ultimately these type of things to try to passivize the vocation process are a way of kind of diminishing choice. Because it's kind of like if I'm looking inside my feelings, for example, I'm looking to the it's almost like I'm putting the cart before the horse. I'm looking into the cart to see how the horse is supposed to move. I'm looking into my motivation, say, am I supposed to go that way or not? My feelings aren't going to tell me what I should do. My intentions are going to tell me what to do. And sometimes we can think about, we can examine our intentions, but we forget that our intentions are something that are in our will, and we can't really look at our intentions that we have currently in a direct way. And we end up kind of also when we're looking at the intentions that we have, we're kind of digging around saying, what do I feel now? What do I feel this? What do I feel that? And And then we say, oh, I don't feel drawn to that, so I can't do that. I'm obviously called to marriage, or I'm obviously called to priesthood. We are putting the cart before the horse, and ultimately we're giving ourselves a lack of freedom. And that lack of freedom, I think, diminishes our love, because then we feel constrained by whatever we discover rather than choosing what we discover. And then we also are not in harmony with, that faculty of choosing, of loving, of willing that is so necessary for perseverance in any vocation. So we're kind of messing around with the way our human anthropology works, I think. And so what happens is, obviously, when we're digging around and we're trying to look for experiences in ourselves, we're looking for those feelings in ourselves, those supposed inspirations from God, which either one could just be our own unconscious mind. It doesn't necessarily, we're trying again to kind of find this thing that passivizes our vocation. And we end up having these experiences that we try to use to determine what to do, rather than insights or decisions. We're not looking at those. We're kind of trying to go based on experiences rather than having a genuine insight that we're like, oh, this is how this works, or like, oh, I'm going to decide to do this in order to achieve my goal of saving my own soul and saving the souls of others. We're having trouble with that. And the thing is, we really can't dig around inside of ourselves and get a good picture of what our intentions are, because, the thing that is looking is the thing you're looking for. We can think about this like the parts of an eye. So the thing is, like, you can look around with your eyeball and you're never going to find the muscles inside your eye. You're never going to find your retina using your eye. You're never going to find any of the things that allow you to see with your eye. You're never going to see the lens, like all the lenses of your eye, by looking out of your eye. And that's the problem. We look for our intentions to see if our intentions are good or bad. Our intentions are actually something that you're doing. It would be like looking with your eye to see the movement of your eye. You can't do that. It's like the movement of your eye is your intention. So if you're like, oh, I have mixed motives for being a priest. Oh, I have mixed motives for being married. Well, that's not where to look. The motive is like what you're doing with your eyes. So that's really the thing that is so important. Because if we have this other way of looking at it, then what happens is you have this sense that, the different ways that it functions are not exactly the way that it works. You're going to try to dig around inside your emotions and your affections, and when you do that, it's just not going to get you the answer. You are the one who decides what to look at, what to do with your eyeball, so to speak. And if you do this, then you can be assured, if I'm pursuing a vocation, I'm going to do that for the salvation of souls, for the glory of God. You don't have to dig around in your emotions and your feelings to see whether you have the right intention. So I hope that explanation is helpful, so that you can kind of, not have to get stuck on that. So again, this whole thing is about trying to shift from an understanding of having a kind of a passive vocation, where we want either God or our unconscious mind or our feelings or our inclinations to kind of tell us what our vocation is, to an active one where we make the choice, where it's kind of the conscious faculties of the mind are where it's happening. Because, God is somebody who acts through us. It's not like God takes over and makes us do stuff, or like, there's not something like that. That's not how it works. It's not like God possesses us like some other spirit. God moves our faculties to choose the good, and so that's where we want to be looking for it in our active choice of this thing. Scriptures say that God is at work in us in order to will. There's a thing that St. Paul says, like, He works in us in order to will His good pleasure, and it's like this thing where it's much more complicated, and God actually operates through the choices that we make. It's not like this thing of, oh, son, God moves us around like a puppet. So I hope these ideas are helpful, and they kind of give you some ideas about how it's kind of this middle part of ourself, the conscious self, our real choices, our real goals. That's the place that you really want to be looking toward if you want to be discerning your vocation and making these kind of choices of a state in life. So, and it's also that, we have to remember that, we don't get complete certainty about our vocation. It's not like, we don't have to have this 100% certainty as if it's like a defined dogma that you should be in this one state of life, or that we should see this perfectly as if it's the beatific vision, that we should be able to see 100% what's going on. A lot of times when you make a choice or you make a decision about your vocation, you will have a response in the will, and you will have a response in the emotions. So if I make a choice that, I'm going to do this, there may be a sense of relief or a sense of enthusiasm, but that is a secondary response to the decision, and it's not necessary to the decision. Just like if I say a prayer or I make a prayer and I say, God, I love you, I don't need to feel that response in my emotions for that to be a real act of my will. So it's the same type of thing. We don't want to put the cart before the horse. We want our mind and heart to be ordered in this, and I hope that these categories enable you to gain a better understanding, or at least an understanding that I think is helpful in vocational discernment. So again, we want to have a conscious vocation, not a super conscious or unconscious vocation. We want to have an active vocation, not a passive vocation. We want our vocation to come from our heart, our intellect, and our will, rather than our imagination and our emotions. And we want these parts of ourselves to be ordered. It's not that we don't want there to be good feelings, it's just that we want there to be and there could be bad feelings. You say, okay, wow, I'm scared of being a priest, or I'm scared of being married. We don't need to have the feelings be one thing or another to be making a choice and moving forward with that choice. So I hope these different types of things can be helpful in looking at this subject.